Hey Internet friends! The fall of Rome was characterized by multiple plagues that had a huge economic impact. The empire started out with silver coinage but ended with metal coins painted to give the appearance of silver. Rome itself was built on conquest and on expansion, but over the years it stretched itself too thin, weakening its military. In its final moments, Rome experienced a major cultural decline, ultimately leading to its demise, with the empire crumbling under its own decadence, totally turning its back on its traditional values. But in the end, did the people of Rome know what they were witnessing? Did they know it was really the end? Rome deployed a political tool known as bread and circuses to keep its citizens occupied, happy, entertained, giving free grain to all the people of Rome and providing the people with endless entertainment, like gladiatorial games that basically just kept the people distracted from the whole dumpster fire. And in what I just listed out, can you point to any parallels between the fall of Rome and the current situation in the United States? And no, this video is not intended to be doom and gloom, scare you, encourage you to never leave your house, but let's get real here. I'm recording this on Monday, April 3rd, 2023, and on the docket for this week is, what do we have here? A potential arrest of our former president? No big deal. Meanwhile, our most recent former presidents, who, as far as I can tell, are not getting arrested this week, have gotten our country into wars of conquest, where our country has no business being and has ended up occupying those territories for decades and decades. Afghanistan, the graveyard of empires, comes to mind as I say this. All to keep this war machine churning to feed the beast, the military-industrial complex, and those who profit from death and destruction. And now, World War III is casually spoken about across our 24-hour news cycle like an impending possibility any day now. Meanwhile, our country crumbles before our eyes. Our very infrastructure suffering under the weight of sending billions in foreign aid to countries most of us will never step foot in. And the two things we have that set the United States apart from other countries are our military and the dollar. We spend more on our military than any other country does on theirs, probably because lobbying is legal here, and the military contractors are lining the pockets of politicians. After all, the sons and daughters of politicians and military interests will never be soldiers. So it's not like they're sending their children to die in these wars. But let's talk about the elephant in the room for a second. With all of this hyperinflation we're experiencing on the daily, with all of this banking drama going on, let's talk about our dollar for a moment. The thing we all work so hard for, and they make this so complicated for no reason so only they can talk about it, right? But our dollar has value on the global stage because it's the default currency of our world. The petrodollar. The petrodollar is like this big game where countries buy and sell oil using US dollars. This game helps the United States keep its money strong and make sure other countries want to buy and use its money. But let's say other countries don't want to play the game anymore. That could definitely cause problems for the United States, because then we don't have a global hegemony and can't use the dollar as a political tool. And that's where we are right now amid the Russia-Ukraine war and this whole geopolitical disaster.
China announced this week that Russia will begin using the Chinese yuan for international payments instead of the dollar. Saudi Arabia is also in talks with Beijing to do the same thing.
For Saudi Arabia, who has indicated that they're open to this, to say, you know what, we're going to be open to considering other currencies to trade in oil. If that were to happen, there would be a complete implosion of the global economic system, but certainly the American economic system. And if that were to happen, you'd be looking at sky-high inflation, just raging Weimar Republic kind of inflation.
We have arrived at the inevitability of the dethroning of the dollar. On the political stage, we're so seemingly at odds with China and Russia that whole thing has set the stage for China and Russia to propose a solution for ending dollar dominance, which has been coined, no pun intended, as de-dollarization. Russia is now utilizing its own currency, the ruble, and China's yuan as the petro yuan in purchasing of oil and trade with other countries. Here's the kicker. Brazil, Latin America's largest economy, signed on for this deal back in February in agreement with China, where they said, okay, instead of using the dollar, the petrodollar, we're going to use the petro yuan to trade with you. Turkey, Pakistan, India, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and more have signed on to de-dollarize their economy. And the biggest story today, April 3rd, is that Japan is now buying Russian oil, meaning it's de-dollarizing too. Just think about it for a minute. Our dollar is backed in nothing except the confidence to exchange it for goods and services. The parasitic force on our country made sure back when the Federal Reserve was created, and then again in 1971, I think, that our currency wasn't going to be backed by anything tangible like gold or silver. So if the United States loses its grasp on the dollar, it loses its hold as a world power. And the World Economic Forum already told us in its 8 creepy predictions for 2030 that the United States would no longer be a leading world power, remember? But again, I'm not trying to say this to scare you. I don't have like a flashlight on my face while I'm relaying this information, trying to keep you from sleeping at night. I'm just painting the reality that we all face and telling you that the bread in our bread and circuses was sprayed by Monsanto glyphosate as a desiccant to dry out the wheat. So no wonder we all have gluten intolerance. We live in the upside down world, and we don't have to, and that's what I want us all to remember. We don't have to live under a predatory system in which our government is actively destroying our country. We don't have to live under a system in which our food is poisoned for profit, in which doctors destroy our health because Big Pharma would never bankrupt themselves by making us whole. We don't have to live in a system where media constantly lies to us, censors us, and follows the exact plot of 1984. We don't have to if we're not under the grand illusion. And make no mistake, I'm absolutely 100% pro-America, but I'm not in the sense that I'm for the government. Because I believe the system we have now operates exactly as it should. It's crooked. It isn't broken at all. It's exactly how it was designed. I'm just pro-America in the sense that I'm pro every single one of you. And I believe in our God-given freedoms, and I believe that if enough of us understood the root of the problem, if we weren't distracted by the bread and circuses, that we could, at the very least, get out of the way of the free-falling boulder, and we could totally go the other way and reclaim the country we once knew. You know, the one where we aren't bringing wheelbarrows full of money to the grocery store to buy a loaf of bread in a not-too-distant future. So what do you think, internet friends? You know, I always look forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much for your support of my channel. Thank you so much for watching, for subscribing, for supporting me on Patreon, and for purchasing my book, The Deep State Encyclopedia. Bye.
I'm just a fake silhouette, avoiding every threat. I wanna